Welcome back. Today we're going to look at a new projectile system I've been working on the last couple of months so that we can better handle projectiles and gameplay abilities. I love the gameplay ability system, but unfortunately projectiles has always been an area where it just seems kind of weak. And so when people ask me, oh, I want to build this projectile ability, that's usually where I'm like, well, here's your options, and they're kind of limited. And so I want to take a look at the system have been using in the past and its limitations and how we can use this new advanced projectile system to get around those. So I'm going to start out here showing you, this is the, when you download the starter project, this is it. And I've got I'm doing this new abilities gallery. Eventually I hope to have dozens and dozens in here to show you guys some ways you can build different abilities. But I've added two new ones here, basic and AoE projectile. But first I want us to take a look at how we used to do it. So today we'll be modifying our light grenade ability in the MMO that we're working on to use this new projectile system. But let's take a look at the old system first. So this is very similar to what we're doing in the MMO that we're working on, is that we have this ability that basically says, hey, on the server use one projectile that we don't rep back to owner. And remember, we added that nice C++ way to not rep it back to owner. But then for the client, for the client, we do one on the owning client, and then the one that goes in the server reps back to the other clients, but not the owning client. So we do that here in Spawn Actor. But here's the part where it really always fell apart, in my opinion. Now I got to sit here and wait for these gameplay events. We got to wait for, did the projectile hit something? Was the projectile despawned? If it did hit something, let's gather the targets and apply some damage. The biggest problem with this is that it doesn't support multiple projectiles in flight at the same time. So people would always ask me, how do I do a rapid fire gun? And the answer is, well, it gets ugly. And one of the methods that you could use, and many people are, is that they keep a passive ability sitting in the background waiting for gameplay events. So they have this one ability that fires, and it can keep firing, but then they have to have this other gameplay ability that just sits there in the background responding to those events. And I've always been a little bit worried about that method for a couple reasons. First of all, that other ability isn't instanced. So I don't know what would happen, I don't think it's good, if two other abilities called a gameplay event on the same frame. I don't know if it could respond to it. You may only get one and not both. The other problem is that what if something happens? It shouldn't, but what if something happens and that passive ability stops running? Now, whatever character that stopped running on, they can no longer, none of their bullets do any damage anymore. And finally, what about the case where someone fires a slow-moving projectile and then gets DC'd? And what would happen here is that because you're using the attacker, the passive ability on the attacker to do the damage, if someone DC'd, any projectiles they've already shot would basically be rendered, inert when they hit something. So that's the current system that we've got, some different ways that you can handle it. But the new system is a little different. So the new system that we've got here, what we do, it's a lot simpler, is that we commit the ability. We use this new spawn projectile. This is a custom gameplay task that I wrote. Most of the code that's inside this is from Unreal Tournament. So thanks to Epic for that great code there. And it's got a lot of really cool things we'll explore. Definitely if you're trying to do a shooter, or even if you just want more accurate projectile abilities in your RPG, there's some great stuff here for us. So we basically just say, hey, spawn this projectile, and we tell it how. We got some different ways to aim. I'll be expanding this in the future. And then we pretty much just say, hey, here's this gameplay. This is projectile damage. I'm just going to put it right on the projectile. And then you'll notice the ability just ends, right? Because it's fire and forget. So we're still using a instance per actor. We're not using instance per execution. But basically this ability can keep being fired over and over and over. And each time it does, it spawns another projectile. But the ability doesn't have anything to do with whether the projectile does damage or not. That's handled by itself later, which is why we have to send the damage effect along with it. So what we're basically doing is we have this new OWS Advanced Projectile. And we have some different settings here. We can set whether it has explosion damage or not, whether we want to kick off a gameplay cue tag for the explosion. We've got the overlap radius. We'll talk more about this move fake to replicated position, which is really the key to this whole thing. And we can still, build it like normal here. I've dropped a static mesh on here, giving it some color. And so it's a much simpler system here because the character that's getting hit is the one that's processing the damage, rather than the character that's doing the damaging. So once you fire it, it doesn't matter if the character DCs that fired it. It's all about the person being hit. Let's take a look at it in action. So I've got run dedicated server, number of players 1. And here we go. I'm glad I added this sprint so I can get to the end of holding down left shift so I can get to the end here. Okay, so basic projectile. Zoom in with the mouse wheel, aim the camera at the target, and press the 6 key in rapid succession. Notice that it fires 5 times per second, and you can have more than one projectile in flight at a time. So here we go. So I'm hitting the 6 key, and you'll notice there's more than one in the air at a time. And we're able to do that because we decoupled the firing of the projectile from the doing damage. But it gets better than that. So I'm just going to use this guy here. We're still doing the projectile with 6. But I want to talk about the code I pulled from Unreal Tournament. So this is an interesting piece of code. What it basically does is that when you fire a projectile and it replicates it to the server, there's an amount of lag. Because, you're not directly on the server itself, so the server doesn't get the projectile launch message until after the client does. Which in shooters can be problematic because it means what you're shooting at isn't really what you're hitting, right? Somebody might have been right in front of you. You got a fast-moving projectile, but it really didn't hit them because what you saw wasn't really what was happening. So what they do to combat this, and a lot of shooter-type games do this, is that they advance the projectile on the server up to a certain amount to match the point at which you launched it. And so the default setting in this right now is 120 milliseconds. And so that is the amount of time that it will advance the projectile up to. So I'm going to sit here, I'm going to hit the tilde, and bring up the console, and I'm going to do net packet lag 120. There's an issue with the packet lag where the first one's just bogus. So I'm just going to shoot something out there just to... If you print it closely, you'll see that the first one actually doesn't have the real amount of lag. It's some weird number in between that moves. So sometimes you'll get oddities with that, but you won't get that in a package game. Okay, so now what's going to happen when I press the 6 key is that it's actually when the server gets the message, it's going to advance it 120 milliseconds to match where the client is. Then it's going to replicate it back to the client one time. It's initial replication only, and then from that point they'll basically stay synced but run separately. And so here we go. And as you can see, it's nice and smooth. The client doesn't even know what the server's doing because the server advanced it to match. So it grabbed the lag, it said how much lag was there, we'll advance it to match. And then what we do in the case of there being more than 120. The reason there's a limit on the 120 is if you let people do this to like half a second or a second, they could use this to cheat, right? Because they could try to play around with their lag. There's programs you can download on your client that will let you control your lag. You could potentially spike it or change things to try to cheat. But the idea here is that, hey, it's only 120 milliseconds. It's going to be very difficult for someone to get a meaningful cheat out of that amount. And so if we increase the net packet lag to say 500, I'm going to again just shoot something up into the air. You can saw what happens there. And now what's going to happen is I'm going to press the 6 key. It's going to delay 380 milliseconds before I fire on the client and then still do the additional 120 to get up to the full 500. So I'm pressing it, it delayed, because it can only advance it that much. Now, in some games, you may not want this. You may be like, I really don't want any delay. I'm not really doing a shooter. I just want it to look cool on the client. I really don't care if that's what's really happening in the world. And in that case, the previous method that we've used, where we spawn a different one on the client and a different projectile on the server, and they're in totally different positions, is actually an okay method. So we're not saying that completely stop using that. But if you're looking for something a little bit more accurate, this is definitely the way to go. I'll change my lag back to 120. Fire something up in the air. Oh, that was actually funny. It ends up launching too. Yeah, that net packet lag thing's fun. Okay, so now I've got an AoE projectile. So what I've done here is that I've set a tag to play a game, an explosion wherever we hit. And then in our damage effect, I've also set another, it's the same particle effect, that's all I've got in this project, so it's going to look a little funny. But we've set some things up, and I've also set that the explosion radius is, what did I say here? 3 meters. So I got the explosion radius 3 meters, so here we go. And you see what happens is it lands in the middle, plays its gameplay cue for an explosion, and then also does, we're going to be using this later because if you remember in the MMO project, we have an explosion that plays where it hits, but then we also have a different particle effect that plays on the people who are affected. So we'll definitely be, this is the one we're going to be using to do that. So that's basically where the system's at right now. There's still some work I want to do on it. I want to add more options for aiming and other options to pretty much make it handle any kind of projectile ability that you would want. As we were building out abilities in our game, we realized, there's a lot more projectile abilities than what we originally thought. A large portion of abilities end up being projectile of some sort, even if they're not a standard shooting. We have an ability where you kind of throw some magic up in the air, and then it turns into meteors that rain down from the sky. Well, those are projectiles. So I want to do some stuff to make that to make it a little bit more flexible, so we can do things like spawning multiple, delays in spawning, randomization patterns, different things like that. I'm going to build it all into it. But for now, I thought I'd throw it out here and let you guys play around with it. Okay, so now we are going to go build it. So the first thing we got to do is we got to download the latest plugin. So this is 2019-04-24. And you're going to want to download that. And as always, we go into our folder, we go into plugins, we delete the OWS plugin, we come back to here, go to the plugins folder, find the OWS plugin, right click, copy, plugins, and paste. And I think rather than modify the existing ability, I think we're going to, I think we're just going to create a new one. That way we can compare the two if we ever need to. Okay, I'm going to load up the levels. We'll take a quick look at what the current one does. We got somebody there we can attack, I think. Let's give it a try. I forget. It's been a while. I forget where we end up. Okay. It's interesting that that other mob doesn't have a... not sure about why that doesn't have a mesh. Okay. I think that we have to go here. We gotta fix this so that it loads those in. So I hit the K key and I removed it and added it back because we don't have those directly loading yet. And I think it's the E key. Here we go. Okay, so we kind of throw this out there and you see it plays a damage effect, but then it also, so where it hits, it plays an impact cue, and then it also has where it hits somebody, it shows that effect as well. Okay, so we're going to rebuild that. So we're going to come in here, and we've got abilities, we've got light grenade. We can reuse the hit effect, the AoE effect. We can reuse some of these. Hit impact. Yeah. So I think I'm just going to create it right here. And let's go to gameplay abilities, gameplay ability blueprint. We'll use the base gameplay ability, and I'm going to call it advanced light grenade. Okay. So first thing we always do, class defaults, uncheck server respects remote ability to cancel, instance per actor. Okay, we're going to commit the ability. And then we are going to spawn projectile. This is the new one. You won't see this if you don't have the updated plugin. Okay, the class of what we want to spawn, so we're going to need a projectile. Okay, blueprint class, OWS, advanced projectile, advanced light grenade projectile. And we'll come actually over into the light grenade projectile to see what it was we did. We have a particle system with P-mace chastise. So, add particle system. P-mace chastise. There we go. And we'll come back to the defaults here. So this move fake to replicated position, that's the thing that's going to do the catch up. Well, kind of. It catches up on. So I said it replicates back one time. And so when it replicates that first time back, it actually replicates back the position of the projectile on the server. And then this move fake to replicated will basically move that one to it. To that location that comes back and does that initial one-time replication. I suggest usually keeping that on. It's weird the particle system just stopped playing. Whatever. So then we've got how much of an overlap radius we want. 10's probably fine here. I don't think it needs to be super large. It's probably good. We do want an explosion on damage radius. What was the old one? Oh, that's the light grenade itself. All that stuff was so complicated. Oh, no, not that one. Here we go, light grenade. Just going to try to match the settings. I think we do a radius, AoE radius. 300. Yep, okay. So we'll come over here. Put the explosion damage radius 300. So this scale doesn't do anything yet. The idea here is that you could scale the damage out from the center, but I haven't built this yet. I will. Explosion gameplay queue tag. We got our gameplay queues. I think AoE effect is the one we want. I think hit effect is each person it hits, but I'm not sure. We'll flip them if we have to. So that's what it's going to play when it hits the ground or anything else it hits. Okay, so we've got that set up. That looks pretty good. So we're going to come here and pick advanced light grenade projectile. We're going to use the aim camera. We do want the pitch. I think we're going to use hand underscore R. We'll see how that looks. Forward offset. Yeah, we'll try half a meter. Okay. Get actor from avatar actor from actor info. What does that give us? An actor, and we need a pawn. So we only need a pawn, and we can make this pure. Yeah, pull this down here. Okay, we're going to need an AoE damage effect. Make gameplay, outgoing gameplay effect spec. And like grenade, AoE damage. Now I think that one does not also play. It does. Okay, cool. It does, and I was right. Hit was the one it plays, so it's going to play that automatically. Fire modifier success to trigger cues. We'll have to watch that. Sometimes you have to uncheck that if you don't set this up. We'll just have to double check that works. Okay, so we're back here. And at that point, either way, whether it spawns or not, there we go. There's the spawned actor if we need to do anything to it after it spawns. But it's a lot simpler. It's a lot simpler. Hold on, target data. This is actually not the target data. This is the person who's spawning it. I'll have to see if I can name that better. It needs make a target from actor. There we go. So we're taking the avatar who's launching it, and that's in target data. I'm going to have to rename that so it says, hey, this is the person who's launching the ability, not the person. There is no target, right? We're just launching the ability. However, one of the things I will be adding is homing. So in that case, there will be some kind of target that you can preset or potentially do some kind of trace inside it to automatically get the homing target. Okay, so it looks pretty good for us starting out. A lot of the settings are on the projectile itself rather than here, which I kind of like. You can easily swap out the projectile. We could grab this out to a class, put the class over here, and then we could make this a base ability, have multiple versions of it, and all you're doing is swapping out the projectile, and you could end up with a dozen cool abilities. Okay, let's see here. What I got to remember how to do. So normally when I test abilities, I just come in here and I set them here. But remember now the abilities are actually coming from that data table. I think in the skill tree. Yeah, right here. So now we need advanced light grenade. So we're editing the Seraph skill tree. I do like how easy it is to do that. And let's see what we've got. So again, as always, we have to bring up this K, uncheck it and add it back because that's still not working. And this one seems to work better if you kind of zoom in because you can easier aim. This is a good thing for first person. We might have to have some different aiming modes for third person, but right now it's pretty good for this. And so now we're using the new ability. We got some problems. It's not it's not hitting our landscape. Interesting. Let me go and see if I hit one of these if it makes a difference. No, doesn't seem to. Okay, we'll have to go take a look at the collision. Oh, actually we got something going on here. Let's see what it is. Add to viewport. Yeah, I noticed that broke on the upgrade to 4.22. I'll have to take a look at that later. Okay, but let's figure out what's going on here with our light grenade. So we'll go to this pawn collision component. It's in presets. Okay, so we want to, yeah, it's only doing overlap, but we want world static and world dynamic to block it. We don't want visibility in camera. Let's give that a try. See if that does it for us. This is also where we can, I forgot to mention this earlier, projectile movement. This is also where we can set our initial speed and max speed, our gravity. So one's going to fall. If you just wanted it to go straight and don't want any gravity, there you go. Set that to 0. And then also rotation follows velocity. There's really no need for this one to do that, so we can uncheck that. But things like arrows and stuff where you want them to change so that they're always pointing the way they're going, there's a great checkbox there. This one's round, doesn't really matter. No need to do those extra calculations. We don't handle bouncing yet, something I want to do. And we don't handle homing yet, which is also something I want to do. There's probably not too much else interesting in there. Let's see if that is going to make it hit our landscape now. Should have looked at that a little closer. Okay, I'm going to hit K, turn that on and off, and hit E. No. Okay. Interesting. I have to go open my project here real quick and see. Can't remember what setting it was. Should have had that on by default. But we'll take a look. That's really annoying. Access none. Okay. That's how it wants to play. It's valid. Unfortunately, that's probably just going to have the effect of not showing the loading dialog, but I'm not sure. Something about that must change the timing. We'll have to make that more event-driven. Okay, so we're going to go check a look here at projectile. Compare the settings real quick. Yep, we had no collision on there. We did custom. Yeah, I just made it hit world static, world dynamic query only. Generate overlap events. Okay, let's double check that over here. And we go into here, collision component. Not there. We got world static, world dynamic query only, generate overlap events. Landscape is world static. And we have that as not on the dynamic, that's fine. Let's take a look. I should have checked this out before. I remember having this issue the other day. I was thinking that was what fixed it. Okay. Oh, actually, you know what? That might not mean it's not hitting. It might just mean... Yeah, let's try it here. It might just mean that okay, handle projectile damage is getting fired. Only on the owning client though, which is interesting. Oh, tractability failed. Advanced light grenade. Well, if it failed, let's take a look. I'm guessing there's some kind of grant problem there. I can't remember. I thought we were able to remove... these. Yeah, because now they're being granted through that skill tree. Advanced light grenade. Plus we have some problem with that. Just to be sure, come in, let's see, light. Just going to put it on the one key temporarily to rule out that's not the issue, because that is what the error is saying. We still got some work to do on that skill tree. Okay, so it just wasn't playing the explosion. Rejecting. Weird. Why are we getting such different... I guess this one needs... and is valid too. Okay, so that wasn't it. It was actually granting the right thing anyway. Let's do a quick comparison. So I'm going to go over to this project. And I probably should have looked a little closer at what I'm doing. Took the avatar actor, sent it into target data. Yeah, that's the same. No issues there. Run the global cooldown. Created a cooldown there. We can do that as well. I did have to uncheck this require modifier success. I wonder if that's new in 4.22. Let's go take a look. Yeah, let's uncheck. So this is on the AoE damage. See if unchecking that makes it play. Yeah, I don't like that rejected. Okay. Yeah. It is actually hitting. can see it say handling projectile damage. Oh, yeah, it's rejecting. Yeah, interesting. Why is it rejecting? What about it does it not like? Did I do something wrong here? Is there commit ability? As pawn, we set the instigator. And we end on success. Let's do this to get an idea what's going on here. Gotta be something simple because it's working in our other project. It's pretty much the same. I think what it is I usually forget here. Usually it's to grant the ability, but K's doing that for us. Okay, so client spawned. Yeah, but not on the server. Interesting. Which is why we're not getting... So basically nothing's happening on the server. And if nothing happens on the server, it doesn't do any damage. Whereas when we go over here, this one, and we do the same ability. See, server handle projectile damage, owning client handle projectile damage. It's doing both, which is important, which is why we're not getting any rejections. What did we mess up in this other project? This could be explaining some other stuff too, potentially. We already ruled out that the skill was doing it by putting it in here. I know that works, because that's all in the plugin and we just replaced the plugin. There's nothing else. We didn't have to manually grant the abilities here. So that we can ignore, but we got something else going on here that isn't pretty. Wonder if it's also what was messing up our CMC last time. Let's go back to light grenade. Double check class defaults. Good, good, good. Oh, that's good. We got nothing stopping it here. We don't even have a cooldown. It's really just getting plain out rejected. Like it's not even there. Well, just for fun. I doubt it's going to make any difference. We will grant the ability. Advanced light grenade. I think that's the character we're doing, right? I guess I should have checked. Third person character with abilities, good. Make sure we're spawning in as the right one. Shift F1, look at the log here. Still only spawning on... Yeah, so it spawns, and then after that, because the first one rejecting it because it probably thinks it's still running. That's why the first time it doesn't throw an error. We're not seeing that over here at all. Commit the ability. On projectile. Only on success do we end ability. We're not ending it on class defaults. Instance for actor. There is a cooldown, but that shouldn't matter. I was doing it before without a cooldown. Got that plugged into AoE damage effect. Very interesting. We don't need that. Print string time. Activated. Let's see if it gets activated that first time. That's weird, even though we added that thing there, the loading screen still loads fine, so I don't know what else it was trying to do. Okay, so we're going to watch the log. Light 1 activated. Server activated, but server not spawned. And of course... Oh, you know what? We also didn't play... Ah, that's no good. We were also playing a montage here. And doing a wait. I think I want that back. Although the wait delay is kind of going to screw up the idea of the... I'm going to leave it out for now. So yeah, this wait delay would kind of screw up the point of using this advanced system to get it to speed up to match it because of the delay. Whatever. We got to fix the other. We got to fix the other thing because that is a much bigger issue. I think I'm gonna stop the video, and I'll take a look at it, and I'll get back. Okay, this was a fun one. I'm going to show you what I did to figure this out. First of all, let me set one of the things back. Let me go here to our mob spawner. I'm going to set it back to the way it was. Spawn one in radius. And this was set to overlap all dynamic. So I'm going to set that back. Okay, so what I did is I went into the code here, and this is the this is the spawning code. And you'll notice that in the spawning code, they've got this UE log spawn. And I said, you know what? We had figured out before that we had narrowed it down to that it wasn't spawning on the client, and so the server, and so the question was why. So I was like, oh, we can get a better error message using these log entries, because you can turn them on and off. And so you see here it's log. So there's a very verbose, log, warning, error, and you set the level. And usually I think warning is the default. So what we're going to do, we're going to launch this. This is what I already did. We'll go do it again because troubleshooting is really what you want to get good at. You're going to constantly be trying to solve problems, and you want to know how to solve them. The process is the important part. So I'm going to bring up the caret, and I'm going to do log spawn. I'm just going to do verbose. I often set it to that. And now what happens is we hit K, we go over here, and we get an error message. Yeah, okay. So the bottom line here says, spawn actor failed the spawn actor. Is pending kill, right? So it's like, okay, it's pending kill. It's pending kill. So obviously that pointed us to this line right here, And it's basically saying, hey, we tried to spawn this actor, but by the time we were spawning it, it was already being killed. So then you have to kind of think for a second, go, well, what can kill it? A collision. Because when the projectile collides with something, then it kills itself. So it must be colliding with something. So then the question was, what is it colliding with? And that quickly led me to zoom out and realize, you know what? We're inside these mob spawners. These collision volumes here, I wonder if they're colliding with it. And that led me to the mob spawner and realized this spawn within radius, which I think someone had mentioned this to me before, that it caused other issues. Obviously, overlap all dynamic is not ideal. We really want something like overlap only pawn, but then look, it's blocking these. So we really just want to go custom. And we want to set everything to ignore. And then just overlap pawn. Okay. And once we do that, and we hit play again, and if we had walked out of the area, which is what I did to test it to begin with, and you see now we're getting server spawned on the bottom line there. See? So we fixed it. So I'll add some code. Well, that was a mistake there just in the mob spawner, but I may add some code to say, hey, you know what, projectiles tiles don't hit volumes by default or something. I don't know. We'll have to see. Probably some improvement we can make there. Okay, so the next issue after that, which actually ended up being what I spent most of my time on, is the fact that it wouldn't play our effect when it hits the ground. And so this is I can't show it to you because I already had to delete it, but you'll be able to see it here. Go back to your light grenade, and there was a gameplay cue called AoE effect. Light grenade AoE effect. And if you open it, you'll notice up here in the top thing it says it was a hit impact, which was one of their derived Q classes, and it says deprecated. And the problem, unfortunately, is that just that thing existing breaks everything. So I had to force delete it. You'll have to do the same. And then I tried to use one of the other ones that existed, and I tried to use the tag again, and everything just started falling apart. And so basically what I did is I went and cleared this out, saved it, went up to our tags table, and I added this new tag right here. So brand new, I wanted to get rid of the ones, this other one was AoE attack effect, and that thing's tainted. Nothing can work with that. Something behind the scenes is screwing it up. So I made a new one, gameplay queue dot light grenade dot AoE explosion queue. Okay, and once we've done that, let's wait to assign it there. We're getting some oddities. I'll show you how I kind of figured that out too. So there's a gameplay queue editor, and this is actually, we may have the same problem again. It's pointed to one that doesn't exist anymore because I deleted it. So this tells what it's going to call, and basically this AoE effect, no matter what I do, it says nothing. And add new, which is kind of a cool interface it brings up here, also fails because it puts it in the wrong folder, and even if you move it to a different folder, it doesn't fix it. So these things are touchy, but we'll use this gameplay queue editor to realize whether it worked or not. Let's see. We may end up creating another tag. So I'm going to go here to blueprint class, gameplay queue, and I'll show you the one. So this notify hit impact, GCN hit impact deprecated, that was the bad one. That was the one that was breaking everything. So now we're going to go and choose static. I'm going to use their GC, which is their gameplay queue, advanced, light, grenade, AoE queue. And that may actually be the exact same name. No, it was just light grenade AoE. We'll see if that updates or not. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to choose AoE explosion queue under light grenade. This is the new one. And now, before I even waste my time here, yeah, they got problems here. Stuff is not updating. And if this doesn't say that it's playing, it's not going to play. This is the same problem I had before. Okay, so let's undo this. And I'm going to go dump the tag. Potentially closing this and logging back in may fix it. I don't know. I'm going to delete it. And I'm actually even surprised if that will make it go away or not. It did. Okay, let me see if I add it back. So, gameplay queue. I never had this problem before. I don't know if it's something new they did in 4.2.2, because I messed around with queues a lot, and they always remap. So, not sure what's going on here. Light grenade dot AOE explosion. FX. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to pick it. Oops, there we go. And then I'm going to see if it remaps it. I'm hoping, since we recreated it, yes. Okay. So removing the tag and coming back fixes it. I got a feeling that also restarting the editor fixes it too. It used to be that every time you did a queue, you had to restart the editor, but recently then they got that working where it was doing it automatic. I don't know if it broke again. It'd be annoying if it did. I finally got used to not having to restart the editor every time I create a tag, but I may go back to doing that. Okay, so we're back to light grenade. GC Advanced Light Grenade. I probably should have put these in a separate folder because now it's getting confused which ones are used and which ones aren't. So I'm going to come in here, and what my thing does is it runs on execute. So I got to come here, give us some room. It's going to be real easy. I also had to look up. Unfortunately, we lost the effect when that thing got, other deprecated one got corrupted. So I had to look up, what effect were we using? Okay, so now we're going to do spawn particle emitter at location. This one doesn't need to be attached to anything. Just a quick one and done. Okay, so it's hit smoke, and it's number 2. At least I think that's the right one. It looks pretty good. And then on the pooling method, we're going to go to auto release. That's a nice new thing they've done there. If that does what it says it's doing and pulls them, that should really help for performance on particle effects. Okay, let's hope that does it. We're going to hit K. Still not firing. Let's go here. GC Advanced Light Grenade AOEQ. Okay. That's good. Ah, we got to come back here and set it. Advanced Light Grenade AOE Explosion. So we're back in our projectile class. We're saying our explosion gameplay queue tag is this. Bet it works this time. Yay! And there we are. And now let's go and see. You can see it was already playing those before, so it hits it. But watch what we can do now. Oh yeah! Light grenades everywhere. And of course that's because we're now doing fire and forget. They no longer have to use those gameplay effects and all that other stuff like that. So we can go back later and add a cooldown to it, but at this point it's run long already due to the excessive amount of troubleshooting. That mob spawner thing really got me. But yeah, that's the new gameplay ability advanced projectile system. And I'd love to see some of the stuff you guys come up with. If you find any errors in it, it is a work in process. If you find any errors, send me a message on Discord, and I'll look into those. But that's it for today. See ya.